Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Tonight is part two of the Jewish experience in Italy. Last week, if you remember, we did Florence, and this week we're going to be talking about Venice. I started the correspondence with the people in Florence, and then I decided to try the people in Venice as well. And I waited quite a few months before I got a response from the people in Venice. And I'm not sure exactly why, but I'd pretty much given up on doing any kind of interviews with the people in Venice because I just wasn't getting a response. And then suddenly I did get a response. And once the response came, the people were very, very receptive and responsive and indicated that I would be interviewing the Chief Rabbi and also either the president or the vice president of the Jewish Association. So that turned out to be really, really very good. And there's a tremendous difference between the Jews of Florence, the Jewish experience in Florence, and the Jewish experience in Venice, as you'll be seeing in a few minutes. Now, the way the interviews go, there are two interviews. The first is with the Chief Rabbi, Rabbi Ghili Benyamin, and he gives me an interview in which he talks a lot about himself and how he came to Venice, and how and what his responsibilities are with relation to the Jewish community. And then the second interview is the interview with the vice president of the Jewish community, a fellow by the name of Corrado Calimani, who speaks more about the history of the Jews in Venice and the current state of affairs in terms of the Jewish congregation. And then we're joined by a lady who was a volunteer in the organization by the name of Gaia Rava, and she will be there as well. But, I have a few other things to do first, and let's get right to that immediately. So this first frame that you see is the list of the two shows. Last week's show, the Jewish experience in Italy on Florence, and tonight's show number 69 on Venice. Whoops. Okay, so there's last week's, and that, of course, in the picture there is the Synagogue of Florence, and that was part one that we did last week. And then tonight we are going to be doing number 69, which is the Jewish experience in Italy, part two on Venice. And what you're looking at there is the Ghetto Nuovo, the new ghetto, which is really not a new ghetto, it's really the old ghetto. That's a story in itself. But I thought I would first pinpoint exactly where we will be going. So if you look right over here at this first dot, first of all, this is Venice, as you may know, an overhead shot of Venice, which is really quite extraordinary, that I got from a Google search. And this is where we're starting our journey at the Palazzo Bembo, where we were staying overnight. And we took a Vaporetto, which is a water bus, along the Grand Canal, only a few stops, to the Vaporetto stop San Marcuolo. We got out, and we then walked a short distance to right over here, the area of Venice known as Cannaregio, and in that area is the Jewish ghetto area, and that's where we're going. And then this is an overhead shot of the Ghetto Nuovo. That's really where the synagogues are centered, and most of the action takes place that we will be seeing this evening in what's known as the New Ghetto. And this is a really close-up view of what it looked like. Now, that used to be surrounded by a gate, and there were curfews, and the Jewish population, I don't want to say too much because the two fellows, the three people actually that I'll be interviewing, will be elaborating on that, and I don't want to, take away from that. But there was a gate around it. There was a curfew, and the Jews began living in this area in the 14th century, and actually began building synagogues in the 16th century. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. But this is what the ghetto area looks like. When you go to Venice, this is what you'll be seeing. So you get off at the Vaporetto stop and you walk along the Rio Cannaregio, which is the Cannaregio Canal, and then you make a right turn here. I'll show you what this looks like later in reality. Our interview with the rabbi was right here at his office, and then we continued walking into the Ghetto Vecchio, Nuovo, right over here, and that'll be the second part a little later on. So our journey this particular day, which was December 31st, that we visited the Jewish ghetto, starts at the Palazzo Bembo, where we were staying overnight. And the first thing we did was go down to the Grand Canal, and what you see there on the lower right-hand corner is the Vaporetto stop, Rialto. And there's the Rialto Bridge in the background. And this is an extraordinary picture, as you see. This is really a great picture of a Vaporetto that had pulled up at the Vaporetto station. So we would get on one of those, not that particular one, but one of those, and we'd head up the Grand Canal, and we'd wind up at the Vaporetto stop San Marcuolo. We then walked around to the Cannaregio Canal, and that's what you're looking at now. The canal over there on the left side is the Rio Cannaregio. This was a rainy, really nasty, nasty day, but this is the street that runs alongside the Cannaregio Canal, and it's typically Venice with beautiful bridges and beautiful scenery. And these are some of the things you see along there. It's typically, Italian. We're not at the Jewish section yet. So these are, Italian restaurants. There's an Italian restaurant right alongside the canal with the boat alongside to the left. And there are food shops. These are all Italian food shops. And this is what we passed along the way. This is more of a bar type store. And there's a fish store. And we actually walked past this spot, and you could see right off the bat that they're selling falafels. So, and it's called Antipasto Israelico. So, we should have realized it, but we saw that sign and kept walking, and then somebody told us to go back the other way, and we went to this spot, and we went up this narrow alleyway. And this is the alleyway that leads to the Jewish ghetto. And we were walking down this and really not sure where we were going, because I'd never been there, Laura hadn't, and our companion that day was Laura's cousin Barbara. And we went, down these narrow passageways, and we wound up in this vicinity, which was close by where the ghetto is located. And we kept passing these really beautiful 500-year-old buildings until we wound up passing some of the stores that were advertising Jewish food. And this is one of them. This is kind of a bakery. And you could see that there was another store. There's me with the umbrella over there on the right side going into the entrance. This is a very well-known bar restaurant called Gam Gam, which is, I think that was the first kosher restaurant in that region. And this is actually the Ghetto Nuovo, and this is where most of the synagogues are located. We'll get to that in a moment. Well, actually, we're getting to that right now. There are 5 synagogues currently in existence in the Venice ghetto, in the Jewish ghetto. And only 2 of them are currently in use. And one of them is the Levantine Synagogue, which was built in the year 1575. It is used in the winter because it's the only one of the 5 synagogues that has heat. And the name Levantine comes from an area of the Middle East known as Levant. The next one is called the Spanish synagogue. And each of the names represents where the people who used the synagogues had come from. So the people using the Levantine had come from the Middle East. The people using the Spanish synagogue had come from Spain during the Inquisition. So this is the synagogue that's used in the summer. It is the largest. It's used in the summer, not in the winter, because it's not heated. And you'll notice that, especially if you remember back to last week when we were doing the Florentine synagogue, these synagogues in Venice are very kind of blending into the scenery. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. The buildings are very unpretentious. This is the Tedesca synagogue, which was built in 1528. I believe this is the oldest. It also goes under the name of the German synagogue because the people that use this come from that area of Europe. It's built in the shape of a trapezium. For those of you who are not mathematicians, I happen to be one, so a trapezium is well known to me because I used to teach this in classes. Some of you may know what a trapezoid is. A trapezoid is a 4-sided figure with 2 parallel lines, as opposed to a rectangle, which has 4 opposite sides parallel. In a trapezoid, only one pair of opposite sides are parallel, the other 2 are not. And a trapezium is the solid, is the 3-dimensional shape, so that's called a trapezium. And then there's the Italian synagogue, and the people that used these were people from Italy who had gone up through the country of Italy. It wasn't a country in those days, to escape persecution from the south. There's no separate entrance here. The entrance is actually into a set of apartments. And the final synagogue is the Canton synagogue, which you might kind of implies like an East Asian thing, but it's not. The Canton, they have 2 interpretations for where the name comes from. One is that it's the name of the family that worship there, and another name is the fact that it's built into the corner of the area, and that's where that comes from. But all the synagogues were known as clandestine synagogues, and that name also applies to churches they had back then. And they were permitted by the government only as a house of worship that was out of the public view. Clandestine, means in secret or in private. So, the synagogues do not look anywhere near the way, for example, the Florentine synagogue looked like. And that was built in the year 1870. And I wrote to the director of the synagogue in Florence, who explained that concept as well, that the synagogues in Venice were from the 16th century, and therefore there was more of a desire for secrecy. This was built in the late 1800s, in which there wasn't such a desire, and I put them back to back next to each other, where you see the Florentine synagogue on the left, and then the synagogues in Venice on the right. You could see the tremendous difference in the 2. This is the inside of some of the synagogues. I took these from a book they had given us because there were no pictures that were permitted. So these are a few of the pictures from the inside. You can see how beautiful they are. And this is the Jewish cemetery that goes back to the 14th century and is located on the Lido. The Lido part of Venice is where the beach is, and that's where the cemetery is located, with stones going back, believe it or not, to the 14th century. And this is another view of some of the synagogues. And there you see a guard post. And this was the office of the Chief Rabbi. This was, so we walked up the stairs. There are, a couple of chauffeurs over there in the front. And this was his office. And the first person that you will hear the interview for is Rabbi Ghili Benyamin, who is the Chief Rabbi of the Jewish community in Venice. He very graciously and wonderfully gave us a really great interview. So that's what's coming up right now, Ellen. Okay? So, you ready? Alan's Italy is really very privileged to today be sitting with the rabbi of the Synagogue of Venice, Mr. Ghili Benyamin. Thank you very much on behalf of my audience. I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, today being the Sabbath coming up soon, so we just want to ask you a few questions about, can you tell us first of all, are you a native of Venice? Were you born here?
No, I was born and grew up in Tel Aviv in Israel.
Oh.
Yes, and I've been living in Venice since 2 years. And my general job is I'm consultant for religious matters to the Jewish community in all over the world. I work for the Chief Rabbi of Israel. So they send me, as a spiritual ambassador, as a religious ambassador, in order to assist Jewish community, each community according to his own needs. So I arrived to Venice for at least 4 years. Next year I will be finished my job according to the contract, and afterwards the time will tell. Let's see.
So there's a chance that you may stay or you may return to Tel Aviv?
Not to Tel Aviv, to the other community, because I worked 13 years in this sector as a rabbi and consultant for Jewish community for religious matters. So before Venice, I've lived in Spain, I have lived in China,
I see.
and States. So I'm young, but thanks to God, I have a lot of.
You seem very young.
Yes.
You seem.
No, I'm not young. I seem very young, but I'm not young.
You're not young.
Yes.
Well, to me, you look young.
I'm 37 years old.
That's young.
But yes, I like my job because I have the possibility to know, many culture, traditions, languages, people, and that was my passion, my desire from the period of the adolescence or of the beginning, So.
Did you request to come to Venice? Was that your request, or?
Yes, because it was my own request. It was a surprise. It was unprecedented, unexpected, unexpected. I found this job by means of someone from the community because 10 years ago I lived in Milan. I was the assistant of the Chief Rabbi of Milan. So people in Italy know me. And after 2 years in Milan, I moved to Spain. And during my period in Spain, I kept some contacts in Italy because I had always, the desire to come back to Italy. So when the former rabbi was retired, so by means of someone, they proposed me the job and I accepted.
So wherever you go, you learn the language?
Yes. When I go, the community gives me any professor, any teacher, or send me to any course, crash course, in order to learn the language. I like learning languages because it's a richness, and so that's one of the requisites and one of the conditions in order to have the job. Because when they propose me the job, so the first question is if you know the language.
Right.
Because in a way I can communicate with people, I can teach them, because unfortunately people here in Venice don't speak Hebrew. And that is one of the main problems for my job here, because it's very hard, it's nearly impossible to teach Torah not in Hebrew. So I have to know the language in order to teach, in order to communicate with the people, because people here don't speak Hebrew. People here know how to pray, but they don't speak Hebrew, unfortunately.
Right. So, how big is the Jewish community in Venice?
Approximately, there are 500 members, approximately, which are inscribed in the community.
Do they live in this area?
No, no, no. Most of them live out of Venice, in the mountain, in the island, in Lido Island, but in Ghetto, a little bit person. And most of them don't come to the synagogue because,
No.
because many, the minyan, for example, during the week, and especially on Shabbat, the minyan is based on tourists, especially during summer.
Really?
During summer, many Venetians go on vacation, the island, the mountain, they escape from the city. So the minyan is based on tourists, and thanks to tourists, we have the possibility to have a regular service during the
Really?
week, on Shabbat, especially.
So you don't have a regular congregation that comes every Friday
No,
evening
unfortunately,
and
no,
Saturday
unfortunately, no,
morning?
No, the majority of the crowd on Shabbat is tourists.
So
And
you,
unfortunately, because the Venetians are very, I don't want to say the word secular, but they are not so close to the.
so you wouldn't say therefore that this is
Or tied to
an
them.
Orthodox congregation or even
Reform.
would you
No, it's
call it a
not reform.
reform?
It's not religious. They are not reform because the community is Orthodox, or the community defined itself as an Orthodox community. For example, if someone, because many people come from states or from French, and they want to get married at the synagogue, for example,
I see.
or to celebrate bar mitzvah at the synagogue, because Venezia is a very nice city, a very romantic city. So many people want to celebrate their marriage or bar mitzvah here, any religious event. So my first question is if you are Orthodox or if you are Reformed, because if the person is Reformed, I don't accept the request, because we are Orthodox and we can accept only the request of Orthodox people.
I see.
The community defines itself as Orthodox in the sense that in the synagogue there are a separation between means woman. Woman cannot be, the cantor, and the structure of the synagogue or the community itself is Orthodox, define itself. But people are not Shomer Shabbat. Most of people don't keep kashrut, for example, because for lack of knowledge, not for lack of will, for lack of knowledge, because here in Venice was the period of leggi razziali, after the second or before the Second World War.
Yes.
So it's not for lack of will, but lack of knowledge. But now, and last year, some people closed themselves to the religion, started keeping Shabbat, keeping kasherut, observing Shabbat. And Baruch Hashem, there is a little bit progress.
Now you mentioned earlier that you're the advisor to the Jewish community. So could you give us an
No,
example?
here I'm the chief rabbi.
You're the chief
Here,
rabbi.
See, for the first time, chief rabbi. But before, for example, I had different kind of job,
I see.
because it depends on the needs of the Jewish community. So, for example, in Spain, I was responsible for the Jewish education in Spain. In Milan, was the assistant of the chief rabbi. In Turkey, for example, in Istanbul, I worked with young people. So in Venice, for the first time in my life, I have been nominated to be the chief rabbi.
I see.
And that's I'm very lucky, because I have the possibility, beside of the job with the community, I have the possibility to know people and to make contacts.
Yes.
For
Yes.
our job, to have contact is very important.
Right.
Because by means of contact, and you can arrive very far.
So what would you say is your primary responsibility as the head rabbi?
The head rabbi, first of all, is to be available to all the needs of the community, to help people in every possible way, in every possible manner, to give charity, for example, to visit sick people, to give any type of help, to strengthen people, to support people morally, spiritually, to be available for all needs of the Jewish community, not only in a religious sense, but also in a moral sense, for example. So, for example, during the week I go to the hospital many times. I go to the private visit at the home of people to ask them, how can I help you? Do you need any help? Do you need money? Do you need my support? How can I help you? Because I can't, close myself here and wait for people. I have to go.
You have to reach
to
out to the
take
community.
initiative and to give people, and then to maintain the orthodox of the community, to maintain the Jewish identity of the community. So, for example, to prevent assimilation, to prevent mixed marriage, to maintain the Jewish identity of this community.
I see. Can you think of anything you'd like to?
I do.
But first of all, as I told before, any rabbi, should be always available to every kind of needs of people,
Yes.
not only in a religious sense.
Yes, I see.
So a rabbi is a leader, no? So spiritual leader is a leader, and here in Italy, rabbi or any religious authority is very, very honored, is very respected,
Yes.
because here Italy is a Catholic country, so they respect any religious authority.
I see.
It's great.
Would you like to ask a question,
Yes,
Barbara?
I do.
Do we have time on this video?
Yes. One question.
Okay, I
Couple
was
questions.
curious about your time in Istanbul.
10 years ago.
10 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
10 or 2002. See, 11 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Where were you located?
In Istanbul and Shishlik.
Oh,
an
in
island,
Shishlik.
Shishlik. But it was a very, very short time because I didn't have the cooperation of the Jewish community, because in Istanbul there are 20,000
Yes.
Jews. Not all of most of them. All of them are secular. I'm not religious. They don't know anything. So I tried, because I was sent by the Jewish agency, Sochnut HaYehudi, and I tried to to establish any center of Torah, of education, but without any success,
Oh.
any cooperation,
Did-
unfortunately.
Did you ever visit the synagogue in...
Neve Shalom, yes.
No, not that one. The one in Burgaz, on the Princess Islands. That is one of the islands off the coast of Istanbul. It's part of Istanbul.
Okay,
And there's a Jewish community there.
okay.
Did you ever go there?
I didn't remember.
You don't
I
remember,
sincerely
because
don't
that
know.
was an
But now the
interesting place.
situation is better,
Yeah.
because I met some rabbi from Istanbul, because last week I was in Bucharest, in Romania, for a Bintal Congress. So I met someone from Istanbul, and he told me that the situation is better. They are a kosher restaurant, and people belong themselves to the synagogue. But at that period there was not anything.
One last question. What's for dinner? What are you cooking for dinner?
Traditional dinner of Shabbat: fishes, meat, cakes, sweets, hummus, tahina, Israeli. And for example, one of my pleasure is to invite people for dinner of Shabbat. Because here in Italy, most of rabbis don't have the mentality to invite people for dinner of Shabbat as in States, for example. So when I arrive here, every Shabbat I try to invite people. I like inviting people because that's heritage from the family. I come from Yemen, no? From Yemen, my family born in Yemen. So we have the pleasure, the mentality, and we like inviting people, and that's one of the ways to involve people in the activities of the community. So I organize, for example, for 10, 12 people, Most of them are tourists and others from the Jewish community. And I take advantage of the dinner of Shabbat in order to strengthen my relationship with the community. Because here, for them, Rabbi is an inaccessible person. For, according to the perception, the mentality, Rabbi is the people, is unavailable people that we don't talk with him because he's holy, no? Unaccessible people, no? So I try to show them, to demonstrate them that Rabbi, first of all, is a normal human being, and you can discuss any matter with him, you can talk to him, and so I try to involve people in the activity of the community by means of the dinner of Shabbat.
I see. Okay. Rabbi, thank you very much.
Nice to
for
meet
your
you. You are
time.
very welcome, and hopefully to see you always in very good occasion in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
I leave you my card. It's okay. No, finish.
Okay, so that was with the Chief Rabbi, which obviously was pretty amazing. Very, very interesting. And the next one, to move on quickly, is Mr. Corrado Calimani, who is the Vice President of the Jewish Community of Venice. And joining us later on in the interview is Ms. Gaia Rava, who's a volunteer in the Jewish community. So the next interview is with Mr. Calimani. So once again, Ellen, when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so the second part of this interview on Alan's Italy is with the Vice President of the Jewish community here in Venice. This is Mr. Corrado Calimani.
Calimani, that's right.
How do you do? I would like to welcome
Hi,
you,
thank you.
And thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure for me to meet you and to get to know you and to make your acquaintance.
Thank you very much.
We are an open community, and we are very pleased to have the possibility to talk to people coming from all over the world. As a matter of fact, this community, it's a real center, because everybody wants to step into the community and know what the situation is in Venice of the Jews. We have a long history behind us, and it's Venice was opened the first ghetto in Europe. So we have 5 old synagogues. Though it's
How many synagogues?
5.
5.
Let's say that perhaps we have 5, more than 5. We have 5 synagogues, but we have also other 3 small synagogues. So they are midrashim. So there's small places where people used to pray and study. So we have more than 5 synagogues. But then, you have the chance to see the synagogues, going to the museum, because they are part of the visit of the museum. And the first synagogue was built in 1528. You must reckon that the ghetto was founded in 1516, and the Republic, the Venetian Republic, allowed the Jews that up to that time were obliged to live in the mainland, not in Venice. They could come, they could enter in Venice and make their business, and to trade and so on during the day. But at night they had to go back to the mainland. They were not allowed to overnight in Venice. So in 1516 there was an agreement between the first Jewish community, which was Ashkenazi, and the Serenissima, the Venetian Republic, that gave a part of Venice, which is situated, positioned in the ghetto, the new ghetto. There was a foundry over there, and from the foundry, in Italian the foundry has a ghetto. Ghetto is something, a melting pot that is made by a foundry, and in Italian it's ghetto. And from ghetto comes the German used to spell ghetto. So this is probably, I say probably, the real origin of the ghetto. Probably, but it's not sure. The origin is so in 1516.
When did when did the Jews first come to Venice, though? Was it around the early 16th century?
They were here long before.
Yes.
Because we have let's say witness, which is the old cemetery at the Lido. The old cemetery at the Lido goes back to 1380, more or less. So it's older than the one in Prague. It's a beautiful cemetery, fantastic.
In the Lido?
And in the Lido, And so this is this witness that Jews were living in Venice before the ghetto, before 1516. And they were living in many little places, little villages around Venice, let's say small towns like Treviso, Conegliano, Vittorio Veneto, Bassano. There were small communities, 20, 30, 40 people, families, nucleus of families, you see. And then they all came to Venice, and they settled down in the ghetto. So the first population, Jewish population that arrived in the ghetto were the Ashkenazi. And they built their own synagogue. Later on came the Italian Jews coming from the southern part of Italy, because in 1492 they were expelled from Spain and the kingdom of Naples, the southern part of Italy. So they came up, and the Serenissima hosted them, and Serenissima was quite liberal, let's say, as long as they brought money into money and trade and merchants and everything. So it's just a matter of money.
Right.
Jews were allowed to live in Venice. They've been allowed to live in Venice for more or less 300 years, because in 1797 Napoleon arrived in Venice and opened the gates of the ghetto. So for 3 centuries the Jews could live, I don't mean to say happily, but fairly well, without being persecuted. No pogroms, no, but always with the threat of being thrown out of the city if they didn't give money. Because the Venetian Republic always asked for money to Jews for the wars, for the necessity,
Yes.
every necessity. When they badly needed money, then they came to the Jewish community asking for it. And this is, in any case, our destiny.
I see.
In the past, it was in the past, I mean.
And I assume that that the Jewish community was devastated during around the World War II.
You must reckon that towards the end of the 17th century, or middle 17th century, in the ghetto, in the 2 parts of the ghetto, because the new ghetto and the old ghetto, here lived more or less, people say 4,000, 5,000 Jews inside the ghetto. And in 1943, in Italy lived more or less 40,000 Jews. And 8,000 Jews have been deported. In Venice, lived about, let's say, 1,500 Jews before Second World War, and 250 Jews have been deported to Auschwitz. either Auschwitz or Riviera San Saba,
Yeah.
Trieste, or other concentration camps. So, of course, the community was devastated after the war, and Catholic people had occupied the houses of the Jews, so it was difficult to go back to normality.
Yes.
And the community, even itself, didn't understand what had happened. Didn't understand. Only 3 members of the community came back from concentration camps, and they never spoke about their experience in the concentration camps. Later on, around 60s, the end of the 60s or 70s, more or less, they started talking, and books came out, Primo Levi and so on, and then people understood what had happened. I was a young boy, and I had 30 members of my family deported, and my grandfather, my grandmother, and so on.
Oh, sorry.
And in our family, there's always been a sadness. But my parents never spoke about that. They were only sad, and then we started gradually to understand. And now that we have grown up, we transmitted that to our children, because we must not forget. They must not forget what happened. It could happen again. You never know. A word is a mad word. It's a mad word.
Yes.
It's a mad word.
Yes.
So you see, every now and then you see what happens, what goes on. You see.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Jewish community in Venice now?
Yeah, nowadays it's a flourishing community. I would say we are 450 people. We have, as you see, you just met our rabbi. He's a young rabbi.
Yes.
He's very motivated. We have an assistant rabbi, and we have a chazan, the one who reads the Bible on Saturday and sings and so on. And then we have there's a member of the board composed by 7 people, and we have a lot of people that volunteer, just helping for all the holidays, the feasts, to organize meals and so on. And our synagogues are always crowded during the summer, because there's a lot of tourists. Lots of tourists. Sometimes we have 200 people in the synagogue on Saturday morning, or even on Friday evening. So it's, as I said, it's how could I say, Venice is something that is known as a Jewish center, is appealing, not only as a town, but is appealing also for the history of the Jews.
Well, you mentioned earlier that the Jews from the south came north, and they came to Venice.
Yeah, they came to Venice because...
So I guess that's always been true.
Yes, they couldn't live there because they'd been expelled.
Yes.
But then other Jews came to Venice after the Italians. Every now and then I forget what I have to say.
Were you born? Where were you born?
I was born here in Venice. I was
In
born
Venice.
I was born in Venice. But as a matter of fact, my family belongs to the first group that arrived in Venice, the Ashkenazi group.
Oh.
And our family has been living here for 5 centuries.
Wow.
More than 5 centuries.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
You know,
Now, we have another member of the community with us today,
it's Gaia.
Gaia. Would you like to talk?
I'm sorry, but I was here for another problem, so he told me, please, can you stay here? That is not for.
Well, you told us earlier before the interview that you serve the community as a volunteer. Could you tell us?
I'm just a volunteer for something. So I was a travel agent in the ghetto. I closed the travel agent, and always I do something for the community when there is some event or for just to organize something for the community.
I see.
And this year we begin with a cooking school and Jewish cooking school, Venetian Jewish school, cooking school. And it was a very nice thing because a lot of person, Venetian too, are very interesting to the history and the culture, Jewish culture. And it was very easy to approach, to the culture, Jewish culture, and it's very nice idea because we begin with all the Jewish holiday, so all the special cooking for the Jewish holiday, and it was very appreciated, and we think that the next year we can begin with some group of American or Europe that come in Venice, and we can ask for this person if they are interested to do 1 day of a cooking school, because it's particular and is because normal all the person knew Venice, but we have to put something that are completely different. So we have to begin to do something different to offer to the tourist.
I see. Okay.
So now we have in the ghetto we have 4 gardens just in the Jewish ghetto, and 2 of these we have to begin. I know that in Berlin there is this garden of the Bible, the 3 Bible.
The tree of the Bible.
Bible.
Now what she's going to say, scusa. Now we have several gardens, she said. They are behind the synagogues. Behind the synagogue. They are beautiful gardens, but now they're full of weeds and So we are trying to restore these gardens, and we just received an offer coming from an important wedding that there was about 20 days ago. An important family, I don't know whether you know, is a Klein family. He lives in New York. He made an offer to restore our gardens and to put up a garden with the vegetables of the Bible, mentioned in the Bible. So this is something cultural, and at the same time.
This one, and we have trees and herb of the Bible. So we think that it's good to have visit and explanation about, and this is you can do for the cooking or for just for the ecology, because it's very important in this moment to do something for ecology. And this year is the day of the culture, Jewish culture, that is in September, is on the ecology. And ecology.
On the ecology, on the how could I say, the ambience. I don't remember in English. How do you say the
Atmosphere?
The atmosphere. That's right. The atmosphere, the ecology, and the smog, and
Yes.
what bothers the earth. I mean, what bothers the earth. So, and this is a theme which every year is a different theme is chosen.
Right.
And this year is about
I see.
about ecology.
Very good.
The world, which is being spoiled. I mean, and is being bothered by all the gases and things like that.
Well, Gaia, thank you. Mr. Calimani, thank you very much for your
Was
time.
a pleasure. Was a pleasure. Was a pleasure. Did you visit the museum?
Not yet.
Now.
We're going to go there now.
Okay, so you.
Okay, so this is the. So that was, really amazing that they were able to give us their time to do these really 2 wonderful interviews. This is the Ghetto Nuovo, and this is where the museum is located, and this is the area where most of in fact, all of the synagogues are located. This is some more views of that. That was that overhead shot that I showed at the very beginning. These are plaques that are dedicated to the Holocaust, all the horrible things that the Nazis perpetrated upon the Jewish population, and each of these plaques illustrate each of the experiences that the Jews had. This is, for example, a plaque which indicates the Jews being herded into the boxcars to be taken off to concentration camps. For me, it was very difficult to look at any of these because it was just heartbreaking, but we decided to show one of those. And this is the museum, and we went in there, and Gaia gave us a tour of that, and we photographed a few more of the things. In the upper level of the museum was an artist by the name of Dwara Fried, who does collages and mixed media and boxes, and that's what she was doing. She had an exhibition up at the very top level, and a lot of these have Jewish themes, and she was very talented. This was a sign that we had seen as we were leaving the community. Keep calm, it's almost Shabbat. Now, on the way out, we passed a store in which this person, Mikal Meron, did paintings of illustrated Torah, Jewish festivals, and other things. And these are some of her work that she did. She stood in front of the display of some of them, and we did a close-up of a few. Her work was very beautiful. And this is an example of a Venice scene, which she did. And then we were walking back, and this is the view you have as you walk back to the Vaporetto stop down this very long street here, whose name escapes me, but through the back streets of Venice, very few tourists, very interesting, very, very charming, and really amazing, the back streets of Venice. We eventually got back to the Cannaregio Canal, down the streets, over a few bridges, back to the Grand Canal, and then, of course, back to the Vaporetto stop at Rialto and our hotel. And I just wish to express profound appreciation to Chief Rabbi Benjamin, Corrado Calimani, and Gaia Rava for their time in granting us these remarkable interviews. And that concludes the two-part series on the Jewish experience in Italy. And our next show we will begin to talk about the Venice Biennale. And we're going to start with the Palazzo Bembo, which is where Laura's exhibition, Laura was one of the many, many artists that appeared there, and we will do the next 3 shows on the Venice Biennale. And you should see those, even if you're not interested in art. The interviews with many of the artists are really fascinating. Remember that these are artists from all over the world, and their stories are really quite extraordinary. So that brings us to the end of the show, and this is to honor my mother, who spoke fluent Yiddish. Gite Nacht und Asash, forgive me, Mazel, which basically means good night and good luck, which of course the usual ending that I relate to you is in Italian, and that's Buonanotte e buona fortuna, which I could say, of course, a little more easily. And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.